Hello and welcome everyone to the first ever We've Got It All Figured Out show. This show will just be myself and a couple of friends. Today, we will have Leo chatting with us. Leo's a good friend of mine, and he shares many of my worldviews, as well as many of my hobbies. As a bit of a disclaimer, we do not, nor will we ever claim to have it all figured out. With this being said, we will never give official legal or medical advice, nor should you take anything we say too seriously. We're just sitting around chatting, guys. Though not officially rated, you should view our show as PG-13, or maybe even R, because we will occasionally be discussing adult topics, and there is always the chance of profanity at any time. With that out of the way, I want to say thanks for watching, and let's get on with the show. So, it's always a little awkward in the beginning, but let's get started here. Today I'll have with me Leo. He's a good friend of mine, and welcome to the first ever this week's Something podcast. It's a podcast show. It's going on YouTube. Anyway, well, what you'll notice is me and Leo here, we both have it all figured out.
100%.
100% figured out.
100%. We are absolutely non-world-class audio engineers that we know this is going to sound amazeballs, and we don't have to worry about anybody else criticizing us ever.
Not to mention our worldviews are the only ones you should ever listen to. And, yeah. Take everything we say to heart.
Let it never be said that you should ever seek out another opinion.
Yeah. Don't seek out any other opinions. Don't fact check us. Don't do anything like that.
Yeah, we're definitely not being sarcastic either.
Anyway, so today's subject is going to be motorcycle riding. We're just going to talk about why. The whys, whens, whats, whos, and hows. So I've got a little follow along here, and I guess we'll start off with that, but I'm going to ask Leo first. Why do you like to ride? Like, what is the draw for you? What is the joy in it? What keeps you coming back?
Well, there's so many things that go into it. I first started riding when I was stationed overseas in Gitmo, and I picked up a bike for $900 because there's nothing to do in Gitmo, and I always wanted to learn how to ride somewhere in the back of my head. And I wasn't in my dad's house anymore, so no worries about getting kicked out, which was his major threat if I ever rode a motorcycle. So I bought a 1984 Honda Shadow 500 that was entirely too small for me. I would turn and the handlebars would hit my knees. Being 5'10", 5'11" with relatively long legs, it was a bike designed for somebody maybe 3-4 inches shorter with much shorter legs. And I almost died my first day riding the bike because I had no idea what to do, and I had to ride the bike to the training class because nobody else could get it there for me. We didn't have any trucks or anything, and I didn't understand that steering is very different on a motorcycle than on a mountain bike. So day one, a lot of excitement there, but started off as just something to do, keep the time going, keep myself out of trouble, that kind of thing, and evolved into, I don't know, just a better way to interact with the world, I guess would be a good way to put it. There's a lot of different types of motorcyclists out there, and I guess I'm one of those that really just likes kind of hopping out and exploring different things and kind of going places that other people aren't really, I don't know, attracted to or keen to go to. Like I'll be riding down the road, and Warp here can attest that I'll be riding down the road, we'll be riding together, and I'll see a little dirt trail somewhere, and I'll be like, hey, let's go there. And Warp here rides very much a sport bike.
Just for clarification, he's referring to me as Warp because we play video games a lot. You can check that channel out. I'll link it and all of that later. But Mind Warp is my name on there.
So we're good with calling you Murphy here then?
Oh, we're good with calling me Matt Murphy, whatever.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Doesn't matter.
Cool. So anyway, Matt rides a sport bike of incredibly capable on the street, but if it gets even remotely bumpy or a little gravel in the road or something like that, he's like on a tricycle again. He just can't keep up.
I mean, yeah. I spent years, legitimately years, riding motorcycles in the dirt. I mean, I guess I I wouldn't say it had my experience there. Like I had my fill of that. I just had a lot of fun doing that then, and I wanted to try something different. I wanted to try a road bike, and I'll tell you, it's definitely nice to look around and at any given moment be the fastest, or if not the fastest thing on the road, very close.
Yeah, well, I drive the Subaru Forester of Subaru Foresters, so I guess the Subaru Forester of motorcycles with a little bit of dirt, a little bit of street capability was apropos. So no, it turned into just a way for me to, spend time not sitting on my butt playing video games and feeling just, and every motorcyclist will tell you this, it's a feeling of freedom, right? And it's so hard to quantify, but being able to just hop on and get lost. When I was stationed down in Virginia, that was the best way for me to spend my time. I would turn off my phone, turn off the GPS, hop on some old country road that I had no idea what it was, and get lost.
And I know exactly the feeling of that. That was one of the main things for me with motorcycle riding. It quickly became my favorite thing to do. I worked night shift when I at my first job, and when I would come home sometimes, and I was away from my wife at the time. I had been away for a year nearly, and I would almost say be a little bit homesick. But what always cheered me up, like what always made me really enjoy, is I would get on the motorcycle and go out to the Olympic range in Washington State, and no GPS. I didn't even have music or phone on at the time, and I would just drive those mountain roads at night. I mean, is it probably dangerous? Yeah, it's probably dangerous to go driving, deer country in the middle, at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, but calculated risk is important. Yeah, I mean, you can't, if you want to take no risk and enjoy no part of your life, then you can just lock yourself in a basement somewhere and go ahead and, for those of you who decide to lock yourself in a basement, this isn't a judgment, enjoy your life how you want to enjoy your life. But I've had so many people criticize, saying, oh, motorcycling's dangerous. Well, yeah, so's breathing if you're in LA. So's walking out the street if you're in Detroit. It's one of those things where you can't let dangerous things curtail your ability to enjoy your life.
And I would absolutely agree with that. And that kind of leads into our second subject here as well. How do you justify the risk to yourself? Not to your friends and family, that's coming next, but how would you justify the risk of riding a motorcycle? Because we can argue back and forth, we can look at statistics and blah, blah, blah. It is inherently more dangerous to ride a motorcycle than it is to drive a car, just at base value.
Well, of course. The fact that you don't have a cage around you, as so many motorcyclists like to say, and I know a lot of guys that use the pejorative of a cager when speaking about a car. And I don't like to think of it in such divisive terms, but as far as justifying it to myself, I mean, I don't really feel like I have to. It's something I like doing. It's something that I do. I mean, hell, you're probably the best person to talk about it when you kind of chide me a little bit for riding as pragmatic and careful and safe and practical as anybody could. I don't zip away from stoplights. I don't, drag pegs in the corners. I don't feel the need to get that adrenaline rush that some other sport bike riders or some of the more extreme motocross guys. That's not what it's about for me. For me, it's about the sensation of freedom and getting out in the middle of the open and being a part of the world, not just traveling through it. And so I don't really feel like I have to justify it. I take reasonable precautions. I wear my gear, even on days like today where it's 93 degrees with 80-something% humidity, and I'm not exactly a svelte individual, and I sweat quite heavily. So, that is what it is. You mitigate the risks how you can, and then you move forward.
I guess I tend to justify the risk to myself. It was more in I hate to say this, obviously, but more in selfish terms. I want to ride. It's a free country we live in, and some people go free diving, some people go skydiving, which I've done a little bit of free diving. I'd love to go skydiving. We should definitely get that together.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to plummet quite quickly.
Yeah. Some people go mountain climbing, some people go race car driving. it's one of those things, like, if you, and it's like you said earlier, if you live your life always fearing the risk of bodily harm, you're not really living. I mean, we're not incurring much risk sitting here doing podcasts, but then again,
I don't know, your computer could shock me at any time and I might die. You did build it.
I mean, that's true, but we also wouldn't have really anything to talk about if we didn't get out and do things.
It's the same argument or question that people have. Well, why do you drink? I don't know. Sometimes a good smoky flavored whiskey and cigar are just what I need to kind of relax at the end of the day. And certainly not that I'm dependent on alcohol, but sitting around a bonfire, having a cigar, sipping on some whiskey with some good friends probably does more for my cholesterol and blood pressure to relax myself and get myself into a place where I can be at peace than, going for a run for 3 miles every morning and eating, rabbit food and taking care of... Yeah, by the way, vegetables aren't food. Vegetables are what food eats.
I mean, I don't know. I had a pretty good chicken salad today.
I mean...
with a homegrown tomato in it. I mean, it was pretty good.
Definitely not saying it's bad, but everyone has their own way of bringing themselves to peace, and sometimes those things can be a little not controversial, but how would you put it? Diametrically opposed. Some things that bring you to peace are dangerous, and some things that are supposedly safe, like sitting in your house, are, well, dangerous too, because who knows? I mean, because it's a dangerous world out there. People just burn your house down for no reason these days.
Because legitimately, you can develop a lot of health problems just by sitting around all day and
pulmonary
not doing
embolism.
anything. Yeah.
Fantastic thing. I mean, you get guys that they'll sit down for a long period of time and they'll get a clot of blood in their legs, and that clot of blood, because of whatever physical structure in their leg, it's all bound up, and you get a clot of blood. I'm really glossing over on these terms here. I'm sorry, guys, if I'm way off base on the medical thing. Don't crucify me, please. But they stand up, start moving around, their blood pressure spikes up a little bit, and that clot all of a sudden lodges itself in their heart or lung or brain, and no more person. And they were sitting down, arguably one of the safest activities. Although, didn't you tell me the other day that apparently sitting is the new smoking? Isn't that something now?
I don't know. They come out with these things all the time. I want to say it was 2014 or 2015. I know I was just going on night shift at my first job. I worked at a county jail, and I was a jailer there. But it was... it might have been 2016 or 2007. No, it's 2015. 2015.
Okay.
Anyway, whatever. We were... I was reading this article on how coffee caused cancer.
Oh man.
Yeah.
If coffee causes cancer, I am done.
And it was like a big deal that coffee caused cancer, and all these scientific studies, and people were boycotting coffee, at least in my area, for a little while, until they came out in 2018. I was at my first duty station. They came out in like 2018 and was talking about how coffee had the, what are they, oxidant, I'm not a medical guy, antioxidants to help prevent cancer, and furthermore helped with what is it? Alzheimer's, the disease that makes people forget
coffee,
things.
My friend. You need some more coffee. The disease that makes people forget things. I think we both need some more coffee there.
Anyway, so it's, I don't know. I don't even know where we came from with that rabbit hole, but
yeah. Stand by, guys. We got a lot of rabbit holes ahead for sure. This is
But don't get me wrong. We've got it all figured out.
Oh yeah, 100%. But no, going back to the justifying it thing. Just today, I was on the bike. For those of you who are familiar, I ride a Suzuki V-Strom 650, and it's a soft roader. She's not the adventure touring bike that it's marketed to be. Let's be realistic here.
And don't worry, we'll have some pictures of the bikes in the actual video.
It's good that you're going to put those pictures up, because I'm way too ugly to be on camera.
And I was gonna ask earlier too whether or not you had pics of your first bike.
I do. I have some pictures of my first bike.
Throw some of those pictures.
It's got a big old Ron John Surf Shop from New Jersey sticker on it. And I guess some guy who's stationed in Jersey, I think it was Jersey, maybe it was Florida, I don't know. I guess he flew into Gitmo and brought the bike with him, and then he just didn't want to take it back, so it became a Gitmo staple. If anybody of you guys want to join the military, get stationed on a Gitmo, you'll probably still see it there. I'm not kidding. There's these bikes and cars. There's the Scooby-Doo van. There's a Jurassic Park Jeep. There's the Big Blue Ford, which was actually mine for a time. A Big Blue Ford F-150.
So they were talking about, like, was it in not in Guam, what was that, in Cuba? In Cuba, for a long time, they've had vehicles from the 60s.
Yes.
That just stay there. And they don't get any new vehicles there. They just continually fix these old 60s.
Correct. There's some because of the embargo and a whole bunch of political things that I barely understand, little less understand well enough to discuss. They have basically no real influx of new vehicles. I didn't get to see any of this firsthand when I was down there. The base down in Guantanamo Bay is very much secured. They don't let you off. They don't let anybody else on. It's the only way on and off the base is through a plane. No boats in or out of the bay. It's a big old thing.
So that sounds kind of rough. Where was I hearing? Because I have a guy, they call him Marky, like Marky Mark. He thinks he's kind of a gangster, but he's a good guy. He went to me in A school. I want to say he's in Guam or in Guantanamo Bay or somewhere, and they go diving a lot. Like
there's a lot of scuba diving down there. The MWR, for those of you who aren't familiar, the Morale, Welfare, and Recreation, is an organization that assists the military with keeping morale up, and sometimes they're more successful than others in different places. But the MWR was pretty strong down in Gitmo. They had boat rentals you could do. There's all kinds of fishing. If you like being on the water, it's a great place to be. You can get when I was down there, it cost maybe $800 total to get your open water master diver cert while you're there.
I mean, that's a steal.
That's dirt cheap. It was all subsidized by the MWR. Unfortunately, my ears don't pressurize well, and I can't do that little Valsalva thing that they all talk about. So I get down about 15, 20 feet, and my head wants to go pop like a cantaloupe.
Were they trying to make you do it just where you open your mouth, or were they going to allow you? Because most
column
people...
A, column B. They had me do a bunch of different things.
I was going to say, most people... Even people with ruptured eardrums, which they still don't pressurize well. People that have had earaches when they were a kid or had tubes put in when they were a kid.
Not something I had to deal with, no.
But they can just pinch their nose, and I'm gonna sound real weird on the mic, and blow out. And
so I tried that one. I tried the just hold your breath and try to push your breath out through your mouth with a closed mouth, and it's supposed to increase the pressure and pop your ears and whatnot. I tried opening my mouth and working the jaw back and forth. None of it really had a good effect, but less relevant to the motorcycling. I suppose kind of reels back in. No pun intended.
I mean, I've got a set here for. Well, we don't have to go this long, but I've got to sit here for, if we need to, an hour.
Oh,
so
okay.
Whatever we want to talk about.
Well, the people wanted to hear about motorcycling. I know this is the first episode, but we've had demands.
Yeah, we've had demands.
So
anyway,
but
so you were talking. So you back on your subject. You were telling us a story today. You were riding in something.
Today I was riding, and it's just fantastically serendipitous that this all happened today. I went to go look for some new safety gear, new boots, new riding jacket. My stuff's about 5 years old or so, and
mine's about 3. It'll be coming up pretty quick.
Yeah,
the zipper's broke on mine.
It's not a timeline thing, but it's one of those. When I first started riding, I bought the best gear I could afford, and my economies are a little better now than what they were then. So I feel like it's starting to get to that point where I can upgrade and get some things that are more comfortable, better suited for what I want to do. And the shop I went to was more oriented towards dirt bike type stuff, which is fine because I like to take the V-Strom out in the dirt when I can, even though I rather well suck at it, as evidenced by today. So I asked them about some trails that are in the area, if they had any recommendations. And they pointed me towards a little quad trail where some of the guys at the shop, and then you go test drive a quad before you buy it type of thing. And I was figuring, well, if a quad can do it, the V-Strom's probably going to be okay. It's probably a little wider. It's not like the single track type stuff.
I think you underestimate quads.
Well, maybe I do.
In some of the places you can go on quads.
I've only been on quads once up in northern Michigan, and those trails I would not take the V-Strom on, but that's largely because they were super sandy, and the V-Strom's almost 500 pounds.
Yeah.
So I was riding, and there's a rock that was hidden by a little fern, maybe 8-10 inches off the ground, this rock, and it caught the toe of my boot and pulled my boot and my toe underneath the foot peg, trapping my toe and whatnot in between the foot peg and the rock. And I was doing probably about maybe 10 miles an hour at the time, which not fast by any means, but fast enough to mean that I couldn't have any real time to react or pull my foot out. So I just kind of dealt with it. And when I passed the rock and realized that I'd tried to scrape my toenail off, ironically, it's one of those things where we talk about safety and how I justify the risk, and I try to mitigate the risk, and I think I do pretty good about it, especially compared to most motorcyclists. And even today, as careful as I could be, I made a mistake. I was out riding on a dirt trail alone. Because none of my friends in the area have dirt bikes, and they don't want to risk their precious little street bikes. So
here's the deal, right? If I would have taken I ride a Honda CBR 650F. It's not the fastest bike out there, but I love it for its agility, and it's
a well-rounded bike.
Yeah, it's agility. And
it's more comfortable than a CBR 600RR.
Yeah, it's just capability, and there's so many different things you can do on it that you could do on a sport bike, like a proper sport bike, but it just feels nicer.
Yeah, and so long as the road is flat, your bike is going to do just about everything there is out there to do.
Yeah.
And so long as the road is a road, your bike will do just about whatever there is to do. So anyway, I was out riding alone. That was mistake number one. You shouldn't go into unfamiliar areas, off-road, alone. What happens when I crack a rim or, God forbid, I broke my foot?
That's what I was going to say. Break your foot, fall off your bike, and break your phone. And then you've got to figure out how to get back to wherever.
If I break my right foot, that's not that big of a deal because that's the back brake, right? Yeah. I can very, not so great, but I could kind of limp my way back home with just the front brakes if I take surface roads and I'm careful about it. I break my left foot, I can't shift the bike.
Yeah.
We're done right there.
I guess it's an instance in which you would just put it in first, start the bike, and first it out of there.
I mean,
or
if
even
you
second.
Really had to, sure. But then I've got a 500-pound bike, and I'm on a trail that you can't turn around on very easily.
Yeah.
I'm very likely on a downhill or an uphill of some kind because the terrain around here is not exactly what anyone would call flat. Nebraska's jealous, I'm sure. Yeah. So anyway, I took some risks, and I took some risks because I like to explore new things. I like to get out in the middle of nowhere, and part of that is, risking my health, my safety. But I get to see and do things other people don't get to see and do because they're not willing to risk those same things. So is that a judgment against them? Maybe in some small degree if they're hermits that just want to live the world sheltered away, but I would encourage people to kind of get out of your comfort zone a little bit. I am not a dirt rider. I didn't, like Murphy here, I did not grow up riding dirt bikes. I started riding when I was 26 years old.
And that was my life kind of back into dirt bikes, go-karts, razors, and quads.
Yeah. I had a dad,
that's what we did.
And my dad was an EMT in the 70s, and his first call and his last call was to a motorcycle accident, and he was charged with recovery of different people parts. And ever since then, he was anti-motorcycle. Dirt bikes, motorcycles, didn't matter. And he really kept me away from that. And I was kind of a Boy Scout as a kid, so I listened to my dad. I didn't exactly, willingly disobey too often. But no. So, how do I justify it? Am I going to go back out on the trail tomorrow? No, mostly because I'm working. But Friday,
Friday we may.
I might go find myself out there. Assuming that I don't lose a toenail or it's super painful or anything like that. But
And I need to find and pick up a bike that's decent for the trails. So we're gonna switch gears just a little bit. And
pun intended.
Yeah, pun intended. And I'm gonna ask, how do you? So I'm married, right? And I have a daughter. She's about to be one here in a couple of days. In fact,
wow, that's
August 12th. By the time this podcast gets out, it'll probably be less than a week. But she'll be 1 year old. Have some family coming up and all that.
Sure.
But so I have a wife and a kid, and I know you don't, but it doesn't necessarily negate the question. How do you explain or justify these risks to your friends and family? Can you? And if so, how do you comfort them? Like, how do you comfort them in showing them that you are at least in some way mitigating these risks and doing your best? Because nobody wants to see you hurt, even we have a friend that just recently got hurt, and it really kind of affected the riding community around here.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even necessarily family. I mean, he's
definitely family of a sort. I mean, he's military like us. We work together. We're, we don't agree on everything. We don't, but we have a good time with each other. We have a healthy respect for each other. And it's heartbreaking to see someone where, he's a new rider, but I talked to him just the other day. He's actually doing a lot better. I got him on FaceTime with my roommate. And he's got a good sense of humor about it. He broke all 5 vertebrae in his neck.
That's awesome.
That's I mean, dude's tough. Dude's tough as nails for sure. But how I justify it to my family is this is one of my coping mechanisms for stress. And in the job that we do, whether it's military, whether it's civilian law enforcement, whether it's, all these first responders, they've got to find a way to deal with stressors as they come across. Some people deal with that because they like puzzles, and they'll go home and do Sudoku or whatever, and that's how they detox. Some people like to go work out, and we could all probably use a little more of that in our lives, myself especially.
I mean, except they've had the gyms closed for the last 5 or 6 months now.
My Lord. The gyms have been closed so long it actually got me starting to run, and if anybody out there knows me, you understand just what a feat that is. But some guys, like I used to use going shooting, like shooting sports. It clears the mind, right? I can actually focus on what I'm doing. It's more a mental exercise than a physical one. But that's also relatively restricted where we're stationed right now.
So I got in rabbit holing again. I got in trouble on my motorcycle in one of my previous jobs, last command, right? And that's one of the things they ask is why do you even ride? Like, are you trying to? They ask me legitimately, and you're talking about an older generation, people that are very practical minded. Not hating on officers out there, but officers at that, right? And if they do ride, they ride the Harley baggers.
In defense of officers,
Yeah.
anytime one of us lowly enlisted folk go ahead and do something just asininely stupid,
Yeah.
it's their career on the line, because that's just the way the military is structured. They have to take responsibility for the stupid things we do, whether it's on duty or off. So, yes, are they FUDs? Sometimes, sure.
Yeah.
But let's give them a little credit here. I'm sure a lot of them don't want to be.
So, but what they asked me, right, is why, and this kind of plays into that. Why were you riding so fast? Why do you ride in general? Are you trying to kill yourself? That's what they were asking. And I was like, no, actually, it's quite the opposite. When I'm riding, especially when I'm riding at speed, right, and it always should be done on a track. I'm not going to.
That's a conversation for a different day.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue
versus...
that. It should always be done on a track. I get that, right? But when I'm riding at speed, it forces me to pay full attention to the task at hand. I can't be thinking about what I have to do for work the next day. I can't be thinking about the stress I've been under the last couple of days, or the deadline I'm about to have to meet, or the blah, whatever. I am singularly focused on what I'm doing at the moment. And it's almost like a meditation.
And that's a fair point.
And I would say that's riding in general for the most part.
I mean, everyone has their own, and this is the brilliant part about riding. Everyone has their own way of plugging in with it and enjoying it for what it is. I know guys that are terrified of riding on the street, and all they do is ride dirt bikes on the trails because they don't want to deal with other cars. And I wholeheartedly understand that. Back in Detroit, I was actually ridden off the road by a semi-driver who just didn't see me. It wasn't malicious. He didn't intend to go ahead and put me at risk. We caught up with him a few miles down the road. Other truckers had pulled him over to let him know what he did, what he hadn't seen. I got a chance to talk to the guy, and he was super apologetic. He had no idea it was there, but that doesn't really change the fact that 30 tons of semi-truck with a pair of trailers behind it isn't something I can argue with when I'm on a motorcycle. I can either be there and get squished or not be there.
Unless it's another motorcycle, you are automatically losing that battle.
And even with another motorcycle, you're really like a 30% chance of living on that one.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's justifying it to my family. Getting back to that, I think the easiest way I can explain it to them is I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. And I don't say that to be insulting. I say that to recognize there's things that people do and have and interact with that shouldn't necessarily need explanation. But again, these are my friends and family, and those are words I don't use lightly. So if they're my friend and they're my family, they already have a pretty good understanding of my character. They know I'm not the guy who's going to be out there taking stupid freaking risks. They know I'm not going to be the guy out there who's blitzing down, running from, I don't know, doing a 60 to 80 mile run from the coast into the cities, and doing that in like a half an hour, like some folks I may or may not have known in the past. But, they know that I'm not that guy. So I think a large part of it has to do with the fact that my character is one that's a lot more pragmatic than it is excitable, which, call me boring if you want. Fine. So party on, man. To quote John Lovell, party on.
So when I justify it, I'd say to my family, I would say it's hard, right? My dad, I don't really have to justify it to. He's along the lines of you're a grown man, you make your own decisions, kind of thing. So I mean, I don't really justify it, and the fact that he wants a motorcycle as well, right? So
that helps.
I mean, and
my dad is still really not okay with me riding. He doesn't like it, but he understands and he at least has enough respect for me, and I enough respect for him that I recognize his point of view. And because he's so worried is one of the reasons why I don't take that risk. I don't want him getting that phone call.
And my mother, she's one of those that, well, it's one of those things she'll just probably never be okay with it. She doesn't have any, I guess, I mean, I don't have her here to talk to, but
call her up.
Yeah, direct experience with motorcycle accidents or anything like that. So I don't know that she has any specific reason to be against motorcycling. She just doesn't like the idea. So in that respect, it's hard, and a lot of times you can't always justify it. The best thing you can do is show them the steps you are taking, and we all make mistakes. One of my mistakes is I've tended in the past to be a little more reckless riding. Since my daughter was born, I've calmed way down.
Oh yeah, I can vouch
just for
that.
her.
Oh man, the day your daughter
sake.
was born, you turned a lot closer to my side of the fence than the little street Rossies that are out there trying to be squidlets.
But my wife, I've never really had to justify it to my wife because she loves to ride with me. In fact, she gets me in trouble, to be honest. I mean,
why are you blaming your wife?
I'm not blaming my wife.
Doing?
I'm saying.
No, you know she can listen to this, right?
Yeah, no, she's going to. And,
okay.
I've been pulled over a couple of times with her on there, and she was the one telling me to go faster. I'm just being for real. So.
Did she? Honest question. Did she ever tell you if a cop was about to pull you over to just go for it?
No. And so that's another thing, and we can rabbit hole into that for a minute, but I will never going to run for them, the police. It is simply not worth it, right? First off,
by the time they have you pulled over, they've already got your plates.
Yeah, well, there's ways around that.
Sure,
but
sure.
Especially on a sport bike where you can just reach behind you and pull that plate up. Anyway, all of that said, right? I will never run from the police, right? Because first off, it's not worth putting their life at risk.
Fair enough.
Because they're having to chase you.
Sure.
It's not worth putting your life at risk, right?
Sure.
And remember that singular focus I was talking about, where you had to really pay attention to what you were doing all the time while you were riding?
Hard to do that with red and blues
It's
behind
hard to do that when you're thinking about running from the police. It's your mind is now off focus, right? And B, say none of that bad stuff happens. What happens when they show up with felony warrant at your door? Because they happen to get that plate before you flipped it up?
Or how about, they did some sort of, I don't know, backtracking on where you might have been coming from. Yeah. Especially in some of these areas where, like, it's one stretch of highway. Anybody who's been down in, like, Virginia area, for example, knows that if you're trying to go north or south with any kind of speed, 95 is your only route. So they go back and they review previous mile markers for traffic cams that pick up your plate. Now all of a sudden they've got your reg. They go ahead and knock on your door, and you're still going to get boned. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who are curious out there, I'm sure Murphy here can indulge you. How fast does radio waves travel?
Oh, wait.
Because you ain't out running that Motorola.
Yeah, I was about to say, some theories state that just faster than the speed of light, and that's not... that's a scientific thing that I'm not going into, but radio waves appear to be flatter over the horizon, meaning they have a little bit more distance over the horizon, and just a brief scientific explanation of that would state that because it's flatter in space-time and all of that, it would
without driving too far down the road of physics here, the point is that your bike is not faster than anything labeled Motorola. Yeah. So the cops that are going to go behind you that are losing you are going to call ahead. Yeah. And if you're significantly putting somebody else's life at risk by zipping away on them, they're going to keep track of you. They can get a bird in the air. No motorcycles outrunning a helicopter.
That's
actually
not true either.
Not if that motorcycle has to turn at all.
I mean, we had a Hellcat. I'll show you a video here in a minute of a Hellcat outrunning a helicopter in Dallas. Just hit I-85 corridor. I guess it is I-35.
Don't helos be able to run like 200-300 miles an hour?
And this was going at least that fast.
200. Isn't a Bugatti Veyron's top speed like 212? Like what are we talking about here?
240 something, 246.
240. Okay.
Yeah.
Still.
Anyway, but I don't know. I don't know the specifics of this bird. I don't know specifics of this car, other than it was a off the lot Hellcat that For some reason, they let this guy test drive. For some reason, this guy kicked the guy out on the curb and said, "Hey, I'm taking this."
And that's some GTA shit.
Yeah,
right there.
and he flat outrun the news helicopter and the police helicopter, and they ended up catching him later, but he flat outrun them.
Okay, fair enough. Chances are you're not outrunning the helicopter. If you're on a bike and have the skill and you can, kudos. Don't do it.
Kudos, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah, prove that elsewhere. Go on a movie set. Go out to the salt
you know
flats
what?
or
I hear
something.
Hollywood's looking for stunt riders. You know, why don't you go on out there and figure out some of that movie magic and go enjoy yourself out there? But don't put the moms and dads out there with the little ankle biters in the back seat. Don't put them at risk. That's just dumb.
It's just dumb.
There's no one can sit here and explain to me any good time in any good way why that's a reasonable course of action.
So I know we got off topic there a bit, but I guess
I told you guys it's gonna be rabbit holes.
Yeah, I guess the final word on how would you explain these justifications to your friend and family? I would simply say, and I bring this up because there's a lot of new riders out, or riders that want to be riders, right?
Well, especially with COVID happening right now, there's a lot of people looking to buy a bike for the first time because, well, it's hard to be better social distance than on a motorcycle. Like, if COVID can catch you when you're on two wheels,
going 60, the speed limit on the highway,
we're screwed. Yeah. If COVID can catch us there, we're screwed.
Yeah. I mean, so, and back at it, it's hard. It's hard to explain. It's hard to justify it to friends and families, whether or not you're a young adult, 17, 16, 17, 18, living at home, and your parents are against you getting a motorcycle. You might not be able to explain it.
That's why I invite them to try it, though, right? So you look at someone, they say, well, why do you ride? That's so dangerous. And, okay, maybe it is. But before you go ahead and just kind of like sign up for the "that's dangerous, you shouldn't do it" crowd, why don't you come on over to an MSF course with me? Why don't you hop on a bike and kind of learn the mechanical control of it and learn what goes into it and just try riding for yourself. And even if you don't like it, that's fair, but I can respect your ability to try to understand.
And that's a short rabbit hole. If you have not been riding for a year to 2 years, and even sometimes if you're not an avid rider more than that, I would not put anybody on the back of your motorcycle. It's a different dynamic. And I would say again, because we've got it all figured out, that you don't.
I think we found the name of your podcast.
Yeah, you don't have the skill set to keep that individual safe. Because now you're not only talking about your life, you're talking about another life. It does, especially on the smaller bikes like mine, change the weight and turn dynamic on the bike. Acceleration
especially if
and
the
braking.
person who's riding on the back of your bike doesn't usually ride on the back of motorcycles
because they don't know how to lean with you and not against you.
It's instinctual for someone who's on the back of a motorcycle as that motorcycle begins to lean into a turn, which, without getting into physics of it, motorcycles have to lean to turn at any kind of speed. It's not like a mountain bike; it doesn't do that. So, remember how I told you I almost died when I first got a bike? Yeah, that's how I figured that one out. So it's instinctual for a passenger to want to stay upright. Right, they're afraid of leaning over. So as they fight you, they're throwing energy in a different direction than what you're expecting it to go, and that can very seriously impact the inputs that you put into the steering and the braking, and can very quickly get you guys into a wreck, and hopefully not killed, but it's a possibility.
Or just scare the living crap out of the rider, and then you've ruined them on life from. And that's another thing. I've seen so many people, especially in the sport bike community, put this young, and I'm not trying to be sexist, feminist, whatever, but put a younger female on there. Typically, they're the cute chick that they picked up at the bar last night.
And they're trying to show off.
And they're trying to show off.
Yep.
And it runs them off of motorcycles forever. Because the first thing they do is they have plenty of experience. They know what they're doing, whatever. And first off, they put them on the bike and they go way too fast, which is dangerous.
Not to mention way easier to wheelie with weight on the bike.
Yeah, and exactly. And then they'll throw a wheelie in there, right? What they don't realize while they were trying to impress this individual is they scared them off of motorcycles for life. They now see this as this crazy, uncontrollable machine, right?
Yeah, and you ruined it for us normal cats that just want a girlfriend who likes riding.
Yeah. And by and large, I'm not saying females don't ride. I've met a couple, and in fact, in my last group, there was a girl that rode she rode an R1 of all things, all 80 pounds of her riding an R1, and she was an
awful lot of bike.
And she was an amazing rider. She
Sure,
really was.
sure.
I'll show you pictures later of
Sure.
some of our bikes and stuff like that. But anyway, she was an amazing rider, could outride me. It was insane. But if you do get somebody new on the back of your bike, or you're trying to explain or show or justify these things, take it easy. Go the speed limit. Go under the speed limit. Do some side roads. Don't hit the corners hard.
Why don't you start off in, say, a parking lot?
Yeah.
And just kind of get them used to leaning with you. You need to give them the instruction, and they need to be willing and understanding of that instruction to make it a safe ride. But you know what? If you want more of that, talk to Dan the fireman.
Yeah.
He's got a great YouTube. Maybe it's a little on the pragmatic side for some guys, especially the Yami noob crowd that love that type of go fasty type stuff. But Dan's a great instructor. He's really safety conscious, but he understands that, hey, riding is fun. A lot of people are going to do it, so why not do it the safest we can?
Yep.
With that said, what's up next?
What's up next? So this one, the way I wrote it is a little bit misleading. What do you wish something car drivers and people that know nothing about motorcycle riding would understand about motorcycles? Both driving on the road and just being around a rider, right? Just being around a rider in general, say sitting around a campfire talking about motorcycles, and also on the road. Like if you could point out one thing that you wish the general populace would understand for your safety or well-being, and or just for your overall happiness, what do you wish somebody could understand?
Well, I think the best place to start for that is going to be, and I can kind of hit both the campfire and on the road type of thing all in one go, is we are not all daredevils. We don't all scream for that adrenaline rush. We're not adrenaline junkies. And those few individuals that do that, those are the ones that leave a lasting memory in car drivers' minds. And the guys that are the little street Rossies that are zipping through at 140 miles an hour on the highway are what I would go ahead and say are very bad ambassadors for the sport. Because whether you realize it or not, if you're on a motorcycle, you are an ambassador for the community of motorcycling. You are a way to interact with people who don't motorcycle. And if, it could be, there's a YouTube video of a motorcyclist who saw I think it was a mid-90s Ford Explorer blue, had left a coffee mug on their bumper of their motorcycle. And bumper of the motorcycle, bumper of the Explorer.
Yeah.
And the motorcyclist comes on up in traffic, grabs the coffee mug, rides up at presumably 40, 50 miles an hour. It seems like it's a highway of some kind. And knocks on the driver's window with the coffee mug and hands the coffee mug back to the driver, right? Like, that's really cool.
That's what we call a pro gamer move.
That is very cash money.
Yeah, that's cash money.
So, and that's one way you can be a good ambassador of the sport, right? You can be a decent person on the motorcycle, and you can bring a smile to someone's face and that kind of thing. And you don't have to be a jerk about it. If you're one of the giant cruiser riders that feels the need to incessantly rev his engine no matter what, look, I get it. Some cruiser guys, with the way their transmissions are designed, you have to get some revs out of the engine to help shift into the next gear or downshift and that kind of thing, and that makes a difference.
But I also promise you're not rev matching while you're sitting still at a stoplight.
Oh, 100%.
I've heard so many people, I was rev matching, bro. You're not rev matching in first gear sitting at a stoplight. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. You're not doing it. So calm down.
One of my pet peeves as both a motorcyclist and a car driver.
Which is why I'm not loud, to be honest. I like every once in a while I'll intentionally be loud, especially if somebody's not paying attention. But I don't have a crazy exhaust.
How annoying is it for you when you pull up to a stop sign and there's somebody who has a system in their car that is so loud you can't hear or think about anything else other than what's going on in that system?
Your teeth are literally.
Yeah, and I get people like their loud music and whatnot, right?
But it's just fine. I mean, whatever.
But if you're out in public, you got to go ahead and have a decent amount of respect for the people around you and recognize not everybody's going to like that. So just because you got your big V-twin Harley, or just because you got your,
straight
blender,
pipe,
a little blender of a motorcycle that straight pipe sounds freaking insanely loud out of some of these four-cylinder little high rev heavy jobs.
Not to mention you're going to go deaf.
Oh my God, right? So, don't assume that all motorcyclists fall into one category just because somebody made a lasting impression in your mind. And fair enough, they made an impression, right? It's always easier to remember the negative than the positive, and you can see that in any facet of anything controversial ever, right? Mm-hmm. But not all motorcyclists are like that. Most of us are decent people who just want to go about our lives the way everybody else wants to. And the other thing too, for those of us who are against it, lane filtering. If we come to a stop sign, right, or a stop light, and It's illegal in most states. I think there's 2 states, I think Iowa and California, right, where you can filter.
It's legal in Washington now,
Is it now?
but
Okay.
it's put a little different. You have to filter to the left, and only if there's a left-handed shoulder.
Okay.
But that covers most.
Left-handed. You mean right-handed?
No, left. You're supposed to go on the left side of the vehicle.
No, not on the highway. I'm talking about if there's a stoplight.
Yep.
I'm supposed to come to the left side of the
You're
vehicle.
supposed to go to the driver's side of the vehicle,
Okay.
and only if there's a shoulder thing, like there's a white stripe on that side with a little bit of extra.
Not a huge fan of that for the way most roads are designed. Maybe streets in Washington are a little different. I don't know.
So what you'll notice is it's not really a thing like out on the highway, but in the cities, especially if there's like parking on that side, right? It can be useful there.
We're talking about if you're on the left-hand side, though, you've got oncoming traffic on your left-hand side.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do it on. That's why there has to be that like median thing there.
Yeah, so my point here,
Yeah.
without rabbit holing again, because we're already 45 minutes into this.
That's fine. We can keep going. We can cut it down. We can do whatever we want with it.
I'm sure he's going to edit me to make me sound like a terrible person here.
No.
But anyway,
Just
lane filtering.
Just edit you saying motorcycle bad guys. just a
over and over again.
0.2 second clip.
Just
right?
loop me on that.
Yeah. Chingy.
So, yeah. So anyway, the lane filtering. If it's not about me trying to get somewhere before you as a car driver. That's not what it's about. What it's about is me stopped at a light behind you as a car driver. The driver behind me doesn't always see me. I blend in to the background of that car driver, and I don't know what it is. There's some sort of ocular phenomena where they target fixate on a car and they don't see what's in between them and that car. And there's so many motorcyclists who are either dead, can't ride anymore, or broken to pieces because someone just plows into the back of them, and then they just honestly were not seen. Fair enough. But if I can filter to the front of the queue,
where they're already stopped,
everyone's
there.
already stopped.
Yeah.
I don't even care if the law says I have to wait for the car next to me to go first and I take the spot behind him. Gravy, that's awesome. But it is so much safer for me as a motorcyclist to be alongside a stopped car than behind one, because now I'm about to get sandwiched between approximately 8,000 pounds of steel, and I don't like that. I'm a big dude, but I'm not that big.
And I guess the 2 things I would put towards that is something I wish car drivers would understand, right? And I sound a little arrogant when I say that some people live their life and they just want to have some fun, right? It kind of goes against your topic a little bit. Some of us just want to have some fun, right? And we're not, most of the time when motorcycle riders are doing something that you would view as unsafe, right? Either A, they're having fun, or B, it's not quite as unsafe as you would think.
You're not going to sit here and justify doing wheelies on the open road.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But if I pass somebody, right, or if I make a lane change, right, in between 2 cars, right, that's something I would never attempt in my Jeep, right? That I would never attempt that. But I have the space and the acceleration on a motorcycle to do it.
Well,
and do it safely.
Remember, acceleration is about the only thing a motorcycle does better than everything else on the road. People have this understanding that motorcycles are just these ridiculously maneuverable, and they stop on a dime and all this kind of stuff. And to some degree, that's true. But
depending on what you're riding.
Well, even an R1 is going to stop slower in a given speed for its weight than a Corvette Z06, right?
Absolutely.
You have 4 contact patches that are super wide contact patches in the Corvette.
And contrary to popular belief, they're not as good in the corners as 4-wheeled vehicles.
Well, it, again, depends on what you're looking at. But as far as side-to-side changes of movement and speed, that's a great maneuverability aspect of the motorcycle, and acceleration. These are the 2 things that a motorcycle has to guarantee its safety, or to try to guarantee its safety on the road. So sometimes when you see a motorcyclist zipping past, and you're going to look and say, wow, man, that dude's an asshole. Well, it's entirely possible that he's trying to get out of the way or get away from something that was putting him in a dangerous situation. Because, oh, sorry guys, Mario's calling. But if he's trying to get away from a dangerous situation, that's a very reasonable way to do it. And even me, as practical as I am, I will and have absolutely gone ahead and relaxed my understanding of speed and speed limits, because it was the safer option for me to get out of there. And as soon as I was reasonably able to, I got off of the road that I was on and got away from the threat. because someone didn't like the fact that I was riding a motorcycle and they literally tried to run me down. At that point, you have to use the tools available to you to get away and to do things that are going to keep you safe.
And you wouldn't believe how common that actually is. The fact that somebody just doesn't like motorcycles. The fact that somebody just does not like motorcycles, so they will become legitimately dangerous to you on the road because they don't like the fact simply that you're riding. That's a legitimate thing.
A friend of mine who's stationed out in Pendleton, over in California, one of my Marines. He opened his door, he was riding his motorcycle and somebody opened their door to have him run into their door because they didn't like the fact that California, it's legal to lane split.
Yeah.
And so I've never been to California for any length of time, but I presumably the 510, the 405, I don't know, there's some freeways out there that are just parking lots for about 3 hours a day.
With that being said,
people get through, and they don't like that, these car drivers, so they open the door, I'll just call my insurance and I'll just get my door fixed, but you're broken now. And that's, I don't know why people suck like that, but they do. Sometimes people just suck.
And also guys, let's also keep it civil here, right? Let's be what is the word I'm looking for?
I don't know. Decent?
No, let's be realistic here.
Oh, okay.
Right? Lane splitting at 75 miles an hour while cars are going 60 is not what lane splitting is intended for.
Oh.
It may be legal in California, right? It might be legal in California.
No, lane splitting in California, as I understand it, and please, anybody who's going to correct me if I'm wrong. This is going to go on the internet, so if I'm wrong, I'll be sure to find out.
No, we've got it all figured out.
100%.
Yeah.
But there's an X amount of miles an hour over the standing speed limit that you can go, over faster than other vehicles that you can go, not over the standing speed limit. So if cars are going 50 and it's in a 60 mile an hour zone, you can go like 60 miles an hour or 65 miles an hour, whatever the limit is, right?
And even then, I believe recently they've cut it down to like the speed of traffic can be no greater than 30 miles an hour.
For you to lane split?
Okay. But even still, at those speeds, there is no safety reason for you to be splitting traffic. Because we've got it all figured out. In my professional opinion, there is no reason for you to be lane splitting traffic, even at 30 or 40 miles an hour.
I mean,
you know,
if you're moving along with the flow of traffic, you don't need to be zipping in and out of traffic. It might be fun. It might be something that gives you that adrenaline rush you're looking for.
And you might get there a little faster. I mean, to be honest, if you can go 50, while everybody else is going 30, you're going to make up some ground.
For some guys, beating the time on Google Maps is a sport, and they really want to figure it out, right?
Hey, I enjoy beating the time on Google Maps.
You enjoy embarrassing Google Maps. Well, maybe not so much anymore, now that your little kidlet's here.
Slow down. All right, let's get on to the next point here. Let's see. We're on 5 of 8. Cool. So, if you could make and enforce any one law regarding motorcycles, what would it be?
Lane splitting.
Okay. Let's say something other than lane splitting.
Here's a good one. Virginia had a really neat little setup where you could use the Easy Pass lanes and the HOV lanes as a motorcyclist for free because those Easy Pass lanes for a lot of the time are less congested for traffic, and it made things, it's almost like the equivalent of lane splitting for the result of it, where you're able to stay out of the bulk of traffic. And that's really beneficial for motorcyclists when it's really congested, because the more frustrated a car driver gets, the more likely he is to not be paying attention. You're sitting in traffic, you get bored, you start texting, you turn the radio up, you start FaceTiming with whoever you're trying to FaceTime with. It's embarrassing how much of the stuff you see when you're on a motorcycle, because you can actually see into these other cars pretty well.
Yeah.
And
what you'll also notice, and I guess this goes back to the previous point, right, is motorcycle riders, not all of us, but by and large the majority of us, are very much more aware of what's going on the road than most car drivers.
I will go so far as to say that when I started riding a motorcycle, especially when I came back to the States and started riding a motorcycle on the real streets with real traffic instead of just on Guantanamo Bay, it made me a much better driver. Even when I'm not riding a motorcycle, the mindset and skill set that the motorcycles force me to have just to be able to make it home alive really kind of helped me stay focused and recognize traffic patterns. A good motorcyclist, someone who's been doing it for a while, and you got 20,000 miles or so of motorcycling on the road. I've got a little bit.
5 years, 22,000 miles.
So I'm willing to bet that most experienced motorcyclists, and I'll call myself an intermediate. I'm not, I'm no Mario Andretti.
No,
Sorry,
we've got it all figured out, bud.
Yeah, well, so anyway,
this will be funny if you listen to the intro.
Right? I can tell when a car, 9 times out of 10, I can tell when a car is going to change lanes before the driver signals.
If he's going to signal.
If he's going to signal.
Yeah.
I can tell when a car is going to change lanes before he signals. I can tell if he's going to accelerate. I can tell if he's going to try to swerve around something up ahead. You can observe all these things by just looking at the way the car is floating around in traffic. Right? And you can...
And it's hard to explain that. Like, I could tell you they'll start inching that direction, but sometimes they'll inch back over, but you still know he's looking for a way to get over.
100%.
He's looking to try to get over.
Recognizing those traffic patterns is a literal survival mechanism for motorcyclists. You have to pay more attention. And that type of thing doesn't just go away when you're in a car.
Yeah.
So that really, really is a significant thing. I don't know, man. These being able to get away from the bulk of traffic, the less traffic I have to contend with and deal with, the better I'm going to be able to negotiate that traffic there. It's a pretty simple equation. It sounds silly on the surface, but realistically, if I could change one law, any HOV lane, give me that for free.
Cool for motorcycles.
Right? Cool for motorcycles.
So, and contrary to what you might be thinking,
and get rid of tolls. We don't put wear and tear on bridges, so stop charging me the same amount you charge a car. That's ridiculous. Okay, I got 2 axles. They got 2 axles. They weigh 4,000 pounds. I weigh 400 pounds. Why are you charging me the same amount?
So, and I don't think of my answers. I literally just wrote these down. So, contrary to what you might be thinking, I didn't think of my answers before I came on here and started talking. But so, off the top of my head, if I was to change one law, there was this cool law in Washington, right? And I would love to see it adopted everywhere and enforced. If you sit at a light for more than 2 rotations, you're allowed to safely enter traffic. Because I ride a light bike.
Doesn't always trigger the sensors?
And it almost, like, your light leaving your apartment or your old apartment, right? I would never trigger that light coming down that hill.
So, actually, that was a problem with the light itself. My car would never trigger that. Yeah. So, for context.
But I very rarely, on my 300-pound bike and 150-pound self, trigger a light.
Sure.
That it just doesn't happen.
Well, they installed a magnetic job over there now. So if it senses any significant metal, it'll pick it up.
So
God forbid you ride a carbon fiber bike.
If I could see one law enforced, or at least understood by police officers and the public, right? And the public more than police officers, because they're pretty on point most of the time with this kind of thing.
If you're not being a jerk nozzle in traffic, cops are going to be pretty understanding of what you did and why you did it. If you can just articulate yourself, don't be a douche to cops.
But
they're decent folk.
But you let yourself take 2 turns and or 2 rotations of the light, and then you can turn out. Which kind of leads me, and that was a law in Washington, right?
It's kind of cool.
And I guess all the way back up here to like 4, right? Mm-hmm. That kind of goes to that. If I'm waving you forward, right? I'm trying to get you to trigger the light. It's something for people to understand. If I'm waving you up, I'm trying to get you to trigger the light.
Right.
I'm not trying to be weird. I'm not trying to do anything funny. But if a motorcyclist is ever waving you forward, like up towards there, because most time motorcyclists
I'll
want you to
back tire and try to wave you forward. Yep. Some people get it. Some people are like, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna
trigger that light. But
other guys are like, why is he pointing at his butt?
Yeah, don't they want us to stay away from him? Which is most of the time true. But if I'm waving you forward, I'm trying to get you to trigger the light.
This is the 1% of the time I want you close to me, because I want to go too, and I'm sure you want to get home. Yeah. And that light ain't gonna get triggered if I'm just sitting here. So
and you're 60 feet away. I mean, some people are overkill.
Let's get this. Well, I appreciate the overkill.
At least it shows they're paying
attention.
Yeah, at least it makes people think.
It's a little inconvenient in that particular circumstance, but they're paying attention, and I like that.
If you could remove a law that is a specific hindrance to motorcycles, what might it be? And there may be no answer for this. I don't know.
I don't know that there is a specific answer. I do know there was an exemption law that was put into place. This kind of goes back to the other question, but I suppose we'll try to give you partial credit here. In Virginia, you could exceed the speed limit so long as you were in an unsafe situation. And that was a law for cars and motorcycles, right? But motorcyclists kind of abused it for a while, and they said that because they're on a motorcyclist, they're perpetually in a dangerous situation, so they can always exceed the speed limit. And what they were trying to do was take the initiative and set the tone for their position in traffic, right? And to a certain degree, that can be a very beneficial thing for maintaining, a good space cushion. And if a cop is a particularly zealous individual and sees somebody doing 3 miles an hour over on a sport bike, he might be inclined to pull that guy over instead of taking a moment to recognize that bike might just be trying to position himself more safely in traffic using, again, going back to two of the skills or advantages a motorcycle has, which is acceleration and maneuverability, to be able to get into those space cushions. And maybe a little recognition there from the law would be nice. Maybe people instituting protections for motorcyclists. So if there was a law that says, the penalties for this type of traffic violation, let's assume it's an arrestable offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that and you put a motorcyclist at risk, the penalties are more severe. Your dog is insane.
Yeah, no, she came in here to see what was going on. Now she's really upset that we're not giving her the attention.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, she's broken. She's 100% broken. So just, putting some protections in the law and then forcing people to learn about it in driver's ed, where if you're going to put motorcyclists at risk by doing stupid things, you shouldn't put anybody at risk. But if you're doing that around a motorcyclist, then...
Almost like the children or elderly law.
Almost. I mean, not to put us in like an invalid category. We're not broken pieces of, we're not on the island of misfit
Not that
toys.
children or elderly are necessarily invalid.
Well, they kind of are.
Yes, some can be.
I mean, I had a 70, 80-year-old grandpa that still chopped his own firewood, so...
No.
Either way, folks. It's one of those, like... If you could protect the motorcyclist with the law, like put some sort of protections in place...
Yeah.
That would be a big deal, assuming the motorcyclist wasn't at fault for what's going on in traffic. Motorcyclists can be quite disregarding of safety.
Abrasive.
Yeah.
But I think that goes back to my point, and I'll answer this question, and then we'll move on to, I guess, closing thoughts. But I guess mine is not so much a remove, but lessen. I've seen back in Washington, I'd ride a lot with sport bike riders, right?
Sure.
And I'm pro police officer because I am a Navy cop, right? But I would see Highway Patrol there in Washington would see us in a group of 5 or 6. We weren't necessarily doing anything unsafe or reckless. We legitimately weren't at the time.
Key up on you.
But they would key up on us, follow us for a little while, right? And then they would inevitably pull somebody over, one of us, for unsafe lane changes. First off, that's a terrible excuse to pull somebody over, unless they're directly disregarding the safety of others.
Well, it sounds like a law like that would be intended to prevent people from cutting other people off or something like that.
But the other thing is, and it goes back to 4, which we're down here to 6, right? It goes back to 4. What car drivers or people that are riding don't understand is that lane change was not unsafe. I'm not in a 2-ton pickup truck, right, or a half-ton pickup truck with a long bed.
Are you weaving in and out of traffic, or are you changing lanes? Because there's a difference, right? And some of you sport bike guys don't understand that difference sometimes.
But even still, a certain amount of weaving is, because I've got it all figured out, in my opinion, legitimately safe. A certain amount of I'm not saying shooting the gap, a 3-foot gap going 80 miles an hour, but a certain amount of changing. Because you get upset that I can get places faster, even if it's safe, right, does not give you the right to be mad that I'm getting there.
Well, I mean, you can feel how you're going to feel. How you react is a different story.
Yeah.
With the lane changes, if you are legitimately weaving in and out of traffic any more so than what a reasonable car driver would be, especially if you're in traffic, right? And there's so many, traffic can mean so many different things. Is it 30, 40 cars surrounding you in a square mile area, or is it, who knows? But if you're weaving in and out of traffic, and if you were in a car, assuming the car could actually make those same gaps and whatnot, if you were in a car, would I still be upset? If so, you're wrong.
If you were,
that's a subjective view, right?
So see that can be a subjective view, or you can have your own take on it, right? But I also fall firmly on the stance of we're not cars, stop comparing us to cars.
Yes.
Because what you can't do safely in a Subaru Forester, I can legitimately do safely on a bike.
Okay, maybe so.
Not in every circumstance, but in a lot of circumstances.
But there's a facet that we're forgetting here.
Yeah.
All right, and that facet is because car drivers don't know the things we know, because car drivers don't understand the things we understand.
Which is why the law will probably never change. But I'm saying if I could.
If you could.
Yeah.
Look, because they have these deficiencies in knowledge and experience, they will react to a bike sliding in the lane in front of them. Just because the bike can get in there quickly doesn't mean the driver might not panic brake. And at 50 to 60 miles an hour, if it feels too close to me as a driver and I panic brake, come on. Like, if traffic behind me is following too close, if I legitimately think I'm about to run you over because all of a sudden a bike darts in front of me, you can cause accidents like that, not because you did something unsafe, but because you did something that put somebody else in a stage of alert and reaction that then created an unsafe thing. At the end of the day, you were what caused that to happen. So at a certain point, you have to recognize that there are drivers on the road who are legitimately using the road in a lawful way, lawful purpose, all that jazz, and they don't have the same capabilities we do. They don't understand the same things we do in the same way we do. So while I get it as a motorcyclist playing devil's advocate, there's going to be that 38-year-old blind dog that's trying to go ahead and do his best and get through traffic, and he just can't deal with those reactions. He panic brakes and just, what the hell just happened? And all of a sudden he's in a 13-car pileup. And that's a little dramatic and a little extreme, of course, but you take the meaning.
And I can understand that. And I'm not talking about I'm not talking about shooting the gap at 80 miles an hour with traffic's going 60 and shooting a 3-foot gap.
Looks a lot bigger to you, the motorcyclist, than it does to me, the driver, and that's what could cause the panic braking.
But if y'all are kind of side by side and there's a 6 to 10 foot gap, and I decide, well, I'm tired of being behind two slow individuals
6 to 10 feet, that's one car length.
Yeah,
you're going to shoot a 1 car length gap and expect me not to react to that? That's kind of small, bud.
Right. But what I'm trying to get at is I can on my bike legitimately shoot a 10-foot gap.
But will you scare somebody into a reaction by doing so?
I truly don't think so, because I'm not doing it loudly. Normally I won't be doing it at an excessive speed. It's just a 2-second flip over, flip back. It's not.
And of course, all these things are subjective.
It's
all
all
it's one
subjective.
of those things where you have to recognize if you're going to ride like that, and it's a fair way to ride, I suppose. You're not really putting anybody in danger, but I think you have to take recognition that it's possible that somebody else might not view it the way you do, because perspective and perception is everything.
No, and that's what I get it. That's why this is all kind of working together. What you wish others would understand, what kind of laws you wish you could change,
and if
things
I could
like that.
Download knowledge directly into their brain. No. That'd be great.
And that's what I was about to say. If the whole world worked this way, if the whole world could hear this podcast and go,
we wouldn't have any car accidents ever, because we've got it all figured out.
Yeah, we've got it all figured out. Anyway, so I mean, we've been going about an hour and 10 minutes here. Any closing thoughts on the matter? Anything you'd like to wrap up?
So for those of you drivers out there, there's a concept that I like to do now that I ride motorcycles. Adopt a motorcyclist. If you're on the highway and you see a motorcyclist ahead of you, kind of take a little agency there and kind of, use your vehicle, assuming it's not putting you or anybody else at risk, and it's a decent way to go ahead and don't screen the motorcycle from the rest of traffic, but kind of be a blocking vehicle, kind of give them that space, and help other vehicles just by your positioning, if you can think of it that way, to respect that motorcycle space and kind of keep things away from him. I guarantee you, the motorcyclist himself, even though he doesn't recognize it immediately, he probably eventually will, because we're pretty cognizant of what's going on around us, and we're going to appreciate it. And so if it's what I do when I'm in my car because it's way too hot to ride, or I've got too much stuff to bring with me to take the motorcycle or whatever. But if I see a motorcyclist out there and I'm in my car, I kind of adopt him. He's my little motorcyclist to protect until I turn off on my turn, and then he's
to go stop by the Chick-fil-A,
kicking him out of the nest and say, "Fly, bitch."
So I guess on my closing thoughts, I have a couple of closing thoughts here.
No.
Right. if first one is if you're a rider or if you plan to start riding. I guess if you're a new rider or you want to start riding, find somebody who is already riding. Find somebody who not your friend that's been riding for 2 months. He may be a great guy, he may be a wonderful rider, but find somebody with years of experience under their belt if you can, and not necessarily even get under a mentorship, but ask him some things you should need to know and listen and try to take to heart some of that knowledge, right? If he tells you, and a lot of people talk about the too big a bike, too little a bike, that truly really comes down to your personal skill set and the amount of self-control you have.
Sure.
It really does. But if somebody looks at you...
I started off on a carbureted 500, immediately jumped to a fuel-injected 654 cylinder that scared the piss out of me.
But...
you know, like, I was not that guy, right? Your first bike for the street was a fuel-injected 654 cylinder that revs somewhere in the stratosphere and just... zips along like that's because that was its whole job.
And and I will be the first one to tell you here and now that it's by the grace of God I wasn't hurt on that bike. It was too much of a bike for me starting out, and you're talking about a guy that had years of experience.
Well, riding,
and I mean years of
dirt,
experience on it. It's different.
It translates, but it's not perfect translation.
Well, I know, mainly because you spend 60% of your time, 70% of your time standing on a dirt bike.
Well, not to mention you're rarely breaking 60 miles an hour on a dirt bike.
Yeah, or if you are, you're on a straight flat of sand or something,
right,
you know.
Right, where if the consequence for you falling is you tumbled on a sand dune, right? Like
that hurt.
That's unpleasant. You know, I don't know anybody who does woods riding on a dirt bike at 60 miles an hour.
I mean,
unless you're riding for Red Bull.
I was going to say Red Bull. There's probably some pro riders that do it, but. No, and secondly, that leads into my second, because you spent a couple of hours or even a couple of weeks on a pocket, 60cc pocket bike that your best friend had when y'all were 10.
You're not ready for the R1.
You're not ready for the street, right? That doesn't translate. You may have ridden, you may have a rudimentary knowledge of what it is, what a motorcycle is, but you're not ready to get on the highway at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour with a car.
So
right?
Touch on that for a second. Everyone has, sometimes they have to find out the hard way that they don't have the skills they need to negotiate a particular scenario, right?
But I would argue in a motorcycle is not that place, because that hard way can be life ending or life altering.
But that's why I'm going to heavily recommend, if you've never ridden a motorcycle before, do one of two things. Like you said, find somebody else who's ridden before, and if it's going to be one of your friends, make sure you pick the friend that has the more reserved, mellow character, not the guy who wants to be the next, Marc Marquez. He's probably not the guy to emulate when you don't have a skill set yet. Number two, if you can't find someone like that, pick a neutral third party who's invested in your success, by which I mean an MSF coach, a total control coach. One of these guys out there. They might cost you a little money, but I spent a few years putting people back together after they got broken apart, and I promise you, $200-300 for a motorcycle class is way better than an ER bill.
Or losing your leg, or being paralyzed from the waist down.
I mean, we're assuming. Let's not go ahead and just straight up assume the worst here. Even if you do
but you kind of got to.
That's not a bad way to look at it. Right? But understanding a lot of these guys aren't going to assume the worst. A lot of the guys who want to start riding motorcycles, they watch MotoGP, and they see all these guys doing cool guy things. And
don't get me wrong, it's fun. It's cool guy things, and it is fun to take the mountain. It is fun to rip around a corner. And
but you know what? I'm not going to go run on over to Afghanistan like I'm Chris Kyle, right? Because I'm not Chris Kyle. But it's one of those things where you have to put in the work, and you have to put in the educating yourself before you put yourself in those kinds of positions, because all you're doing is increasing your risk. And maybe the increased risk is what you like. If so, try parachuting without a parachute, man. Go have fun, party on. But you're putting other people at risk too, and that I'm not okay with. You got to learn what you're doing, because if you kill some little kid, there's no living with that. That's just insane,
Especially if you kill a little kid and you are already feeling somewhat guilty about what you were doing. But also, with that being said, and again, I'm the guy that you probably shouldn't talk to when you're first learning how to ride a bike.
No, come talk to me. Don't talk to Murphy. Come talk to me.
There's also no other feeling like pulling the front wheel off the ground in second gear coming out of a hard corner. There is no other feeling like that in the world.
Yeah, sure.
There is no other elation to that.
Please experience these feelings on a track or closed circuit course, please. Okay, yeah, sounds good. And you know what? Funny story. Track days are actually reasonably affordable.
Well, and I'm gonna throw this out there, right? I'm gonna be careful in the way I throw this out there, so it's not construed or pulled later if we do happen to go big with this. I was with a group of people we worked with the very first time that happened, and I was chasing somebody that was in the 7 area.
Out of 10 of skill?
Out of 10 of importance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and in the 7 area out of 10 of importance. He was riding...
Out of 10 or out of 9?
Out of 9.
Oh, okay.
Out of 9.
Okay.
And I was chasing his R1 down... Hurricane Ridge.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that was the first time.
And
I could catch him in every corner and out of every corner. Straightaways, no way.
Corners,
not an R1. But out of every corner.
Races are won in the corners, folks.
Yeah.
And with that's a great lead into another little safety tip. If you're not familiar with the term, go look it up. There's tons of YouTube videos on it and all that kind of stuff. Ride your own ride.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't
ride your own. Don't feel
if
like
you don't have the
somebody.
skills. Yeah. If you don't have the skills, like this is one of those things, right? And with our friend that recently got in an accident,
sure.
But not even him, right?
No,
but
this one was not his fault.
Yeah. But
I say this one like he's been in a bunch of others. No, he got into his first motorcycle wreck couple 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And
he's pretty banged up. But he did not do anything wrong as far as we're able to tell. The cops aren't jamming him up on anything. Like somebody else cut him off, and he wasn't prepared for that. So the only thing he did wrong was not planning ahead.
Well, and I don't know how much is known about it, and I'm sure the facts will come out. He might. Well, maybe, was he going too fast? I mean, does anybody know if he was going too fast?
It sounds critical when I say that he's not planning ahead.
Yeah.
But maybe there was something he could have done to avoid the mistakes somebody else made. I wasn't there. I don't know. But I know his character, and I know he's not someone who's taking truly unnecessary risks and recklessness. He likes to push the boundaries. We all do from time to time. But he's not someone... He just had a kid. He's not someone who's trying to put his own life at freaking risk. And all of a sudden, he winds up in one of the worst motorcycle crashes we've seen. And thank the good Lord that he's okay.
And
going to be okay.
And for anybody listening to this, we thank the fact that he was wearing his gear.
Oh, yes.
We thank his amazing first responders and the crew of medical team that put him back together. If we didn't have those individuals out there, this would have been totally different situation.
100%.
And we truly thank our first responders and EMTs and the medical staff, doctors, nurses, albeit whoever helped with his recovery, and is going to continue to help with it because it's going to be a recovery for him.
I like I said before, I kind of was on that side of the fence for a while in the military with the medical side of things, and the amount that those people care, the amount of time and effort they spend into perfecting their trade is critical, because sometimes they are the difference between circumstance and fate.
Yeah.
They are the ones who made sure that he stayed above ground, and for that, he's like a brother to me, this guy, and I couldn't imagine that that's such just one moment in time and he's gone. That's insane to me. Does it change how I ride my motorcycle after I heard about his crash? A little bit, yeah. A little bit.
It does.
I kind of tone things. Even me, I'm pretty milk toast individual when it comes to riding a motorcycle, but I kind of calm things down a little bit, even further than I normally do. Yeah.
And
so it's
I guess to finish out closing thoughts, even this individual Jackson here, whenever he first started riding, and he rode my bike first, mind you, but whenever he first started riding, when he got his first bike and we went up to what is that place we go up there? Devil's Hop Yard.
Devil's Hop Yard.
Yeah, we go up to the Devil's Hop Yard. So
don't worry, no devils, no hops. It's just a place.
Just a place. Yeah. Anyway, I told him, and I guess not to toot my own horn, it shows a little bit of maturity. Don't follow me. I've got 5 years and 22,000 miles under my belt. And don't follow me.
And let's recognize that 5 years and 22,000 miles under your belt. that's scratching the surface as far as a properly experienced motorcyclist.
Yeah.
You know, the nuance and depth of skill for riding a motorcycle on
Well, it's
normal
never
roads
ending.
is, well, I compare it to like a race car driver, right? Like you take any of these NASCAR guys or Formula One guys, they can sit in a car and absolutely make me look like I'm just silly, right?
Yeah.
And I've got 200,000 miles of driving under my belt, you know, but motorcycling takes you to that next level of having to be aware of your physical manipulations of the bike and of the vehicle. 5 years is scratching the surface for an experienced motorcyclist. You know, he's had a year under his belt, and he was, mechanically speaking, when it comes to controlling his bike, he was very good at it. He was quite natural to it. Circumstance showed him that there was other things going on that, you know, either he didn't notice or he noticed and was unable to move out of the way.
And hopefully
or
he gets
prepare
back
for
to it. Hopefully this doesn't hinder his motorcycling career. I don't know if he will or won't, but...
Well, maybe, and you know what, if he does, you know, it might not be on that kind of bike anymore. Maybe he takes towards the cruiser side of the fence, or maybe he hops on a regular old street bike and he just wants to bop around and enjoy the city and whatnot. Maybe he gets right back to it and loves pushing the envelope and stuff like that, like he did a couple times, and I'm thankful to say that that's not what led to it happening this time. But it's, you know, maybe he gets back to it. I really hope he does. I truly think life is better on two wheels. It's just so much different.
Well, I highly encourage everybody out there to at least give motorcycling a shot. If you have the slightest, and some people don't have the slightest inclination. Some people could care less whether or not
it's like
there's on a motorcycle or not.
Some people love knitting. I have no interest in it.
Even if you have the slightest inclination of riding a motorcycle, I would highly recommend you at least give it a shot. And maybe it's not for you, and you know that's the cool thing about the hobby is it doesn't have to be for you. You can sell the bike back, you can go back to your car, you can do whatever you want, and just be done with it.
We've got thousands of these little like caveats and tips and whatnot. If you are going to buy a bike, don't buy a new one.
Buy used.
Buy a used bike. You know, and it's stereotypical, but buy a used bike. Probably buy a used Japanese bike. They're dead nuts reliable. As long as they're in good condition and been even remotely close to taken care of, they're going to be dead nuts reliable. You buy a used bike on the bottom end of the market, and that's basically as little as these bikes are going to sell for unless they're truly wrecked. You know, you spend $1.5 grand, $2 grand on a bike, and if you decide it's not for you, sell the bike for $1.5 grand, $2 grand, and move on.
Move on to something else.
You're not taking a huge amount of risk.
Pick up camping or hiking. Those are good.
Or moto camping.
Anyway, I think we're gonna end it right there. We're already over. We're at an hour and 21 minutes, and I mean, to be honest, we're pretty good friends here. We could sit and chat about the nuances of this all day. I think next week's topic is either going to be backcountry camping, safety and protocols you should take, what you do in certain situations if you find yourself in those certain situations. And I'm not going to give away too much here. We're not going to really get into it. Or we're going to play the Second Amendment game.
Yo, that's a big one.
It's a big one.
That's a big one. But these days it's a little dicey.
But I really don't care about dicey. But with the Second Amendment game, one of us, either me or you, or hopefully we have Corbin in here, will play the Second Amendment ex-nay or veto, or the guy that doesn't want the Second Amendment.
You recognize a few months ago he just bought his first shotgun.
Yeah, well, no. That's what I'm saying. One of us. What I'm saying is one of us will step out of our role and we'll play the anti-Second Amendment and defend it like we truly believe it. You know, and just go over some of the topics there, and you know whether or not countries are actually doing better. And we're not getting into it now, but whether or not countries are actually doing better or actually not doing better, and what we could do better as a nation and a society to make this American dream, as it were, better. Or we may do a totally different topic. We don't know. We're playing this, flying this plane by the seat of our pants.
No, we're not. We know what we're doing.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, we always know what we're doing.
Yeah,
and
we know everything.
We've got this all figured out.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks Leo for coming by here today. I mean, it's a Tuesday afternoon, day off. He didn't have to be here, and it's
it's too hot to be motorcycling right now.
It's too hot to be motorcycling.
Way too hot.
Yeah, and we thank all of you who have sat around, stuck around, and listened.
You poor souls.
Hopefully we'll have some pictures and some gameplay and some footage in there.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm on Twitch at Twitch TV /MindWarp903. So there will be gameplay in the video version of this on YouTube. There'll also be pictures, and there may be some motorcycle riding footage and things like that. I mean, you've got an hour and 23 minutes of footage to put on
Before
there.
you send this video up there, what we should do is download one of those motorcycle racing games.
Yeah.
And we just play that in the background and the footage. That way you guys get to see something cool instead of my ugly face.
Yeah, and so feel free to look me up on Twitch. It'll be linked in the description. And, hey, guys, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for hanging out with us, Leo.
No, it's good times. Good times.
All right. We'll catch you next week.